future forward. The Leadership Roundtable essentially is all about unlocking the potential and exploring the future forward nature of generative AI. We've got four panelists and one moderator. Let me go and introduce them, all of these, and then you will have these all folks coming onto the console. Uh, we have Deependra Singh. He's the Vice President and Head Data Science and Analytics at Network 18. We have Amita Mirajkar. She's the co-founder and CEO Clairvoyant. We have Sai Nikhilesh. He's joining from US. He's a data science and customer insights leader at American Airlines. And we have Vipin Verma. He's the workforce planning and analytics leader at Orange Business Services. So you see a very distinct set of backgrounds, and that will make this discussion very, very meaningful. And to moderate, we have none other than Manas Agrawal. He's the co-founder and CEO of Afine. Over to you, Manas.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Bhaskar, for inviting us on this very, very interesting topic about generative AI. And I have absolutely fantastic panel that have the privilege to host. Hello, everyone. As a part of this fantastic program from 3AI, we are here to bring some answers to some of the questions you all may be having. And trust me, I have one of the best panels available on this topic, which will help you with their perspective on, where do they see generative AI getting used, the risks thereof, how things can be mitigated, and many more things. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. And first shots, very quickly to Deependra and Vipin. I think both of all of us will agree that there's a lot of buzz about the magic of generative AI. In terms of creating a menu out of the items left in my refrigerator to planning a trip for me, and allowing me to be the lazy bum. But I think enterprises are looking forward to a lot of use cases that will transform the way they are working. So, Deependra and Vipin, over to you guys. Yeah, please help us understand what kind of use cases you are seeing in your industry where generative AI is or will be getting used.
So, in media, generative AI is like a boon, especially if you are in the analytics space in the media industry, because uh, we are dependent on a lot of things, people writing articles for us, and trust me, we are on. So, out of those 100 articles written, only 20% or 15% are good enough to be published, even though we are paying for all the 100 articles. So that means a lot of wastage has already been there. Where with generative AI, it has come in to cut down that wastage. So article on the first front where we find usages, a person has written an article, it can improve the article, which we've already started seeing. So not only improving the article, now we can have our own generative AI where we can, it's easier to train now. We already have open source Gen AIs where we can train it according to our needs. So if I've started training on the industry data, on the media data, and I've used some of the open source generative AIs and started training them, and we can see that they have started generating some relevant articles. And interestingly, with the social media feed, it can verify those some of the news as well. It can go ahead and verify. If we give them social media feed, it can real time verify the news that has come to us. So news verification, validation is there, and so article improvement, article generation, headline generation, which is very crucial part. Headline has to be SEO. Uh, the SEO has to be done real time before we publish it. So that takes long time in generating an proper headline. Which AI, if we show the AI the SEO keywords, and if we give them the content, now with us it is generating the headline with which is SEO powered. So this is these are some of the use cases which we are already using. Then comes the recommendation engine. It will recommend the right articles, which is like uh, articles which are very similar. It can line up that, and very critical thing is the anchors, news anchors, news readers, which are reading news for us. They're the face of the industry, but we are dependent. So Aaj Tak recently tested it with an uh, AI news anchor, and they asked our honorable home minister a question. It was allowed to ask a question and he answered. So this was just an experiment, and that experiment somebody has kick-started in this industry, others will follow. So that dependency on anchors will go away. We will soon have avatars reading the news for us. So that is where I see. And finally, last but not least, combining everything which I've talked about, is robo journalism that would come in. You will see most of the factual news that will be, you don't need person to go in. You'll have Gen AI verifying it from social media feed, also from the drone feed of the company. So that kind of vision I have for this, and that's where some of the use cases I've already talked about, which we have started using. So that's where we are with Gen AI in the media industry. Over to you, Vipin.
Fantastic.
Sure. Thank you, Dipendra. And in addition, I like to talk about the use of generative AI in the field of HR. Uh, as you know, that HR is basically a function which deals or which takes care of various uh, various parts of the employee life cycle, like attracting the employee, attracting the candidate, hiring, retaining, and developing the employee. So in all these fields, I feel there is a lot of use cases that are available, or that can be, where generative AI can be used in all these fields. There could be the generative AI tool can also provide us with the strategies to cater to those problems or issues that the employees have highlighted. So whatever they have, the feedback is given. So the strategies can also be devised using or generated by using the generative AI tools. In addition, when we're trying to retain an employee, then we can also try to identify or analyze the reason for leaving of the employee or staying in our organization. And we can also use generative AI to or to suggest the strategies where we can try to retain or the employee from leaving the organization. Uh, the generative AI can be a very good tool or very effective tool in the learning and development organization for an HR professional, because there could be a lot of content, a focused content that can be generated for the L&D function uh, to uh, to design the trainings for the employees. For example, Python learning courses can be generated for the focused starting intermediary or maybe advanced level of courses can be generated, content for them can be generated using generative AI. So there could be a lot of uses of generative AI in HR field and the employee life cycle, as I can say. So
Fantastic. Absolutely. I think, both you and Dipendra, thanks a lot. I think, and I'm sure the listeners and viewers are taking notes, because these are very valuable input on, how generative AI would not just be in the lab, it's coming to the kitchen very, very quickly as we speak. And the moment, we talk about things coming from the lab to the kitchen, I think we are also talking about some bit of risk it may have. And like any other new technology, nothing to single out generative AI, but like any other new technology, we need to take care of the risks as well. So Amita and Sai, if you guys can, go next, help us understand what do you think of some of the key risks that come along right now. That would be very, very important for viewers and listeners to understand when they're thinking of generative AI, what to watch out for.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Manas.
Do you
Yes,
want
Sai.
to? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for asking this question, Manas. So it is very important to understand that AI systems or generative AI are designed to assist or provide information, but they are not capable of independent thought and are always limited by training data. So there are various factors that help us to gauge trustworthiness in the generative AI. first thing is how transparent is the generative AI model what we have. Like, do we know how fair it is in decision making, or what are the limitations or capabilities of generative AI, or the AI system you are using, and how well the AI system or the generative AI model what you have is been trained and validated to maintain consistency as well as reliability of the model. And also on top of that, like when organizations are using generative AI, right, we need to make sure that our ethical principles being followed, like to make sure that there is fairness or bias or accountability while in operation. And as any other tool in the artificial intelligence field, there is one main key point which we need to consider is like, is there any human oversight or intervention on top of the AI system to correct the errors what it has. And also, as you know, like human judgment is always very remains very valuable in decision making. So I would say if we follow these practices, then I would say the trustworthiness of generative AI will be increasing, and that will help us to go to the next level. So that will help. And also coming to the risks involved, there are various risks involved in generative AI. I would point two risks, and I will give to um, the other panelists on the call. One is the data privacy, which I feel is one of the biggest risks that is involved in generative AI right now, because like there have been a lot of reports you have been saying that employees have been sharing proprietary information or confidential information to get more information regarding it, right? So once you input your information, generative AI can train models based on the information and provide this an answer to your competitor, and that loses your confidentiality, right? And that can create a lot of issues as well. And even hackers can use that, and can have increase can increase in cyber threats as well. And another is cyber security. So with increase in generative AI, you can write your own codes, and also more what do you say, complex code to create threats within the organization. So I would say these are the widely known risk in generative AI right now.
Thank you, Sai.
Amita?
Thank you. You had really good details, and indeed, these are points that organizations have to take care. So, just to add a few on top of them, right? The way I look at trustworthiness is trust is very hard to build, and even if we compare this with how do we trust other human beings, right? So if we go into a new community and if we start interacting with new individuals, make new acquaintances, perhaps they start becoming friends, we don't trust them right away. So we it takes time for us to see acts of integrity, acts of honesty. It takes many interactions, maybe some tough situations, to see how they behave in tough situations, and to see how their thought processes, how do they handle situations that are not usual, and then slowly we start trusting them as individuals. And similar to that, when there are intelligent systems out there, one is the creators of the intelligent systems, enterprises. They also have to give it time. They also have to make sure all the due diligence is done in terms of designing, training, deploying, auditing, testing, monitoring, and all of that before they trust the system to be usable by end users. And similarly, consumers also have to do their due diligence whenever there are intelligent systems out there to be used. And slowly the trust will be built. So that's how I look at trust. It won't happen overnight. Uh, it won't, I don't think it's expected also. But there's a lot of advancements, a lot of best practices are being published by large organizations in terms of the use of technology as well as in terms of ethical, best practices. So every company should look at what's out there and create their own checklist about how do we build these systems and how do we deploy these systems. So that's about trustworthiness. I'm a proponent of this technology. So in general, I believe in trust but verify. So we have to trust any new technology, but we have to verify it. Right? So that's a famous quote that's being followed by many people in terms of people interactions as well. For risks, so in addition to the bias, fairness aspect, privacy of data aspect, so these are big risks. These can impact whether people are getting fair treatment by uh, you know by services that are using these intelligent solutions. This will also depend. This will also impact whether people are getting due credit for their own work. So, suppose if I'm not an artist and I create images using, DALI or any other tool, it behind the scene will use pictures or images created by other artists. So, are they getting credit for this? Are they even aware that their images are being used for something that is being created on my name? So things like those. So these two are very important factors. In addition to that, I would like to highlight two other big risks, and we'll come to how to address them. So one is the socio-economic impact. So there is no doubt that nature of jobs is going to change. So jobs are going to get smarter. um, Same job, just to take an example of a programmer, right? So whatever was the job description and the must have set of points in the job description, those are going to change over period. But until it becomes a norm, will everyone know that jobs are changing? And this is a technology example, but uh, uh, a job in the bank, a job in retail supermarket, right? So until the whole paradigm shifts, will everyone know at the same time that the nature of job is changing, and will they have similar resources to be ready to prepare to get skilled or to change their mindset? So there will be a period where there'll be significant socio-economic impact because of this, and of course because of earlier points also. So that's an important risk. The next one, and the biggest one in my mind, is the unethical usage. So more than the system or AI doing anything to us, if people decide to misuse it, they can misuse it to a very large impact, and that is the biggest use. If somebody decides to use this unethically to impact, large number of people, then that's the biggest risk we have to avoid as a community of um, you know businesses, as a community of AI technology contributors and users. So that's how I look at this, Mats. Thank you for asking this question. It's a wonderful question.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Amita and Sai. I think you guys have really delayed on what different kind of risk, and absolutely fantastic point about the socioeconomic impact that you talked about. Besides the trustworthiness, of course. And just a quick question then to Vipin and Deependra about, as consumers of generative AI today and going forward, how do you see yourself mitigating some of these risks? Any best practices you are thinking of, or anything that comes to your mind as something that other organizations can also leverage? So maybe, Vipin and then Dipendra, if you can just put your thoughts from the mainly the consumers of AI point of view.
See, basically, as a consumer of AI, I think it is very important uh, to share the data with the generative tools very judiciously, and so we should not, because it is an open platform, and whatever we share, it goes to a generative AI database, which is learning itself for maybe the next logic, or maybe the next question that is being asked somewhere else. So it is very important to mitigate the risk for a personal user. It is important to share personal data very judiciously, and for an organization, I think it is very important, because organization is working on a lot of confidential data about the customer, about their financial, about the employees. So it is very important that the data that is being shared or being put in generative AI tools. So first, it should the generative AI tool that they are using should have kind of a boundary or we can say firewall kind of a thing which can kind of protect the organization data from outside access or from where there's unwanted access from outside. So I think it is very important for the organization data not to be used unwanted users or sources. It is very important to protect the data by making appropriate technological barriers around it. Now, it is also important that generative AI can be used in a manner that it also protects the IP or the copyright risks that organization can face, because once the copyright technologies of an organization are put in that particular tool, I think it should not be accessed by anyone else. So this is what I think, that as a consumer, from personal perspective, individual perspective, and from organizational perspective, we need to take care while using generative AI.
Fantastic. Deependra, over to you.
So yeah, so I think so, and what Vipin rightly pointed out, a lot of organizational data people used initially, they've put it on. So two employees from Wipro got fired. That was an example where they put in a lot of codes, organizational codes, core competency of the organization. They put it on there, and there are also generative AIs. Some of them, so like Google Bard says, they have used it for enterprise to enterprise usage, but there is also a risk where you are sharing your confidential data. What risk is that they don't take your data into their system, but the learning goes into their system, so that your competition can make use of it. So we need to go step by step, as I said. So it's a it's not that you have to use for everything. So for generic things, use these generative AI, which is publicly available. Otherwise, what is actually generative AI is, because it's a learning. The learning is in the form of weights. So you download those weights into your system, create your generative AI. It's now not that complicated. So whatever specific purposes you want it, you just train it for that. Use a open source, train it over that, and keep it within your system. That's the best way where you can make use of generative AI to the best, until the time it develops, and it develops to a position where it can firewall all this. So I'll give you another example where the Pentagon's burning fake news. What happened was, there was a fake news that happened, and that caused the entire stock market crashed because of that. So the stock market crash was caused by a fake news. And so in this case also, all the media organizations should come together to have one single repository of verified news. One organization can't have that much amount of reach where it can verify each and everything. And if we have it, it will be, the cost of the news will go high. And at the end of the day, news is free for everyone. So we need to look at from a media perspective that we have to come together to form a conglomerate where we can verify each other's news, at least for that purpose, so that this will also save all the media organizations, because it will save them from legal cases. So this is and as I said, last but not the least, which I'm repeating myself, but like the way we have been using it step by step. We only use for headline generation. Article generation is being done, but that is again manual intervention. Human intervention is still there. Once the article is generated, it is read and verified, and even some wordings are changed before we launch it. So there has to be a human intervention going forward. It is not that in 1 year even it will not be. So it's a human in between which is stamping or verifying it. That's how we are going about it, and that's, I think so. There has to be a human wall till the time it's effective enough. So bring that human wall and keep it there till the time it's effective.
Absolutely fantastic thought, Vipin, Deependra, that, at the core of it, be very careful, be very choosy about what you're using generative AI for, what data are you putting into it. Don't end up getting yourself and your organization in some trouble. And especially as individuals, also sometimes we are not careful and we end up putting that data out there, which may be at risk. And also going step by step. And as I think Amita mentioned, trust but verify. Having a human in the loop as a supervisor, even as Sai mentioned, I think that's of value. So, guys, as we are coming to really the last few minutes of the conversation, what do you guys think about what would India be doing? What would we see from the India Inc. and from the Indian ecosystem? So, Amita, any thought from you? And in each of you, if you can just take quick 30 seconds to highlight what's your thought on that.
Sure, sure, sure. So the way I look at this is, there are sort of 3 to 4 pillars for um, a country or any large organization. Country is nothing but a large organization to play a decent role in such kind of advancement, noticeable role, right? So first is skills. So we all know India has technology skill set. There is some gap, but that's being quickly filled by all the education at tech organizations. There is a lot of participation of universities and industries. So the skills gap is being addressed in multiple ways. Second is government serious about this? In 2020 itself, India participated with 15 other countries and formed a sort of consortium called Global Partnership on AI. And that is to kind of be ahead of how do we make use of this, how do we regulate it, how do we put right guardrails but enable usage of the technologies, and so on. So from government side, there is very good awareness, there is very good interest and genuine interest to support the growth, right? From enterprises, as per a recent study from Deloitte, I just happened to read, for state of AI in India, there are about 88% of respondents. There were 88% of respondents who said we are going to increase our spend and investment on AI. So, which means people are ready to do something, enterprises are ready, government is ready to support. And lastly, in India we have a lot of creative people, a lot of people who are good in art and design in various fields. So there is no shortage of creative thinking. Um, with all of this, I'm positive that India will play a role as a creator in this technology space, and also a large consumer base, which we are already. So, a combination of both, I think there will be pretty good space and impact that India can create for advancement in AI in general.
Thanks, Amita. Vipin, Deependra, quick 10-15 seconds. Unfortunately, we are short on time. But
Sure.
what new would you see coming from India?
National AI has already, there is a national AI portal, nationalai.gov.in. They've already started doing some of the investment on the generative AI. Plus, with this, there are other the funding part, which Amita also touched upon. The funding part where India is a consumer already of generative AI, but the funding, and I think so the businesses have started seeing the positive impact of Gen AI, and I think so the funding would come by in near future. And I'm waiting to see something of generative AI. So I come from a village, rural place in India, and I want to see generative AI impact in the agri sector, which I'm waiting for.
Awesome.
So that's where it will create the maximum impact with 1.5 billion population, and for them to be fed. There are two areas: education and agriculture, where I find the maximum potential for India. And I'm keeping my fingers
Fantastic
crossed.
point. Fantastic point. Vipin?
I agree with both Amita and Dipendra. I think India has a lot of potential in terms of talent. So we have a lot of talent available. But I think the issue would be how much funding is being put into innovation, AI innovation specifically, because I believe the startups might find it very difficult to get funding on specifically developing a new AI tool rather as a competitor to ChatGPT or Bard. And the big organization, Indian IT companies, I don't know if they have that kind of patience to have that kind of a startup mindset around.
Noted.
So it would be kind of how much funding and when and how far we can get.
Fantastic.
That is my point.
Sai, any closing remark? And unfortunately, we have just maximum 30 seconds. So kindly just be
No,
succinct.
I echo with the other panelists because I see India rather than just being the consumer. I see India playing a huge role in the creative space as well because as Amita said, India has a lot of creators in various fields. So I see going forward, I'm also hoping to see in agriculture as well as other fields that generative AI plays a huge role. So the closing remark for me is I see India playing a huge role in consumer as well as a creative space as well in generative AI space.
Fantastic. And I think, thanks to all of you. I think this has been a fantastic opportunity for me as well as for all the viewers to listen in about different aspects of generative AI. Fingers crossed, we should see this revolution pan out in a very, well balanced manner without too many of hiccups. Fingers crossed. And thanks once again, everyone. Have a nice day. And thank you, 3AI, for organizing this.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Manas, for
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Manas.
thank
Thank you.
you,
Bye.
thank you.
Great. So before I thank the panelists and the moderator, Bhaskar, I want your views on this panel discussion, please.
I think an excellent discussion. I loved the direction that it took and the possibilities that lay in front of us. Because essentially, what all panelists ended with was the fact that generative AI as a transformative technology can help bridge the gap between what we know as India and Bharat and unify those markets to actually drive value for us as a country. That is something that we are hearing, of course, also, for example, in the OpenAI discussion, where CP Gurnani and others have said that, yes, we will develop something that is more India contextual. But I think that's the right way to go. We need to start contextualizing to our country, to our languages, and other things that are out there to drive benefits for the population overall.